Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the E-Tribe. This is Isar, your host, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for my guest today for many different reasons, but I'll start with a short story. A friend of mine who's a brilliant marketer, his name is Adam King. And Adam used to have a very interesting podcast called the Client Catching Podcast. And he recently changed the name and rebranded it the B2B Growth Think Tank, where he brings questions from people with businesses and he puts a panel of experts to answer these questions, which is a very cool and interesting format. And I was lucky to be on the launch of the show on that panel with two marketers who are way smarter than me. And one of them happens to be Dov Gordon, who is my guest today. And everything he was saying was so much my language about how the core of growing business is learning how to develop relationships and how to do it in an effective way, in an efficient way, while still really deepening and nurturing those relationships. Brilliant.
There's so much to know, and it is so impossible for anybody to know all of it. Bringing people together who, with a spirit of generosity, and I say this, I have a little video on profitablерelationships.com about the JVMM. I make this point. I said, look, I'm looking for people. I'm not looking for celebrity. I really don't care how famous somebody is. I really don't care how cool they are. I'm looking for mastery and generosity. I'm looking for people who've mastered their craft and have a generous spirit, looking, happy to share both what works and what doesn't. And that's a big part of why it's working so well. So we know who we're for. We know what we're looking for. I don't get caught up myself. Yeah, we do have some members who would qualify as celebrities in their areas to some degree, but they're only there because they're also masters of their craft and really, truly generous. So that, again, I see the two most valuable things I'm doing is curation and conversation, bringing people together, making sure it's the right people there. And I turn people away. I've turned away a guy who I estimate was worth $100 million. And not because I was, not because I wanted a great story, but it's simply because there wasn't a fit. I did a survey of the JVM about a year ago, and I sent out a number of questions, and I asked people just to try to understand what was most valuable. I have like 12 or 13 or 14 various variables or benefits that I'm seeing people gaining from being in the network. And I want to know, what do people find to be, how would they rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 as in terms of value? And I saw that people ranked very high the ability to have one-on-one or get to know, to really build new relationships with other people in the network. At the same time, people shared that they were only having between 0 and 3 conversations with other people in the network. That was the majority. Some people were having more. So what I realized was that what people were saying was most valuable, they were not getting around to. It's because we're all busy. And, if you have 100 members in a community and you talk to one a week, it's going to take you 2 years to get through to everybody. Sure. So I started something new, which is, I call the weak tie explosion call, because the most valuable people in your network are often the weak ties. It's research from the 60s or 70s, I forget. And, the idea is really, it's kind of speed dating within the JVMM. And so I created a system or process to make that easy. And now people are, the people in JVMM will, somebody will say, oh, they decide they're going to schedule a weak tie explosion call, and then invite other people to sign up, and they'll have 5-6 people in a conversation. And then after that, everyone can realize that, oh, this is good. I got to know a handful of people, and these two I should definitely follow up with individually. And then let's, do the same. So now instead of, talking to 0 to 3 people a month, I'm talking to more within less time. What I figured out, and I've narrowed my focus in my little coaching organization over the last 2 years, and that's where we switched, or in the process of switching my branding to the Profitable Relationships Company, profitablерelationships.com, is because I realized that a lot of what I was doing for free, I could start to get paid for. And that has to do with transitioning from a free group to a paid group. It was a very scary transition for me. It was a big leap. I was afraid to make it. But after consulting with members and thinking about it for probably too long, I started charging a modest, $1,000 to $2,000 a year, and suddenly
Yeah, but for 100 people, that adds up.
it does. It was never my intention,
Yeah.
but it's become a little business.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And what I came to realize is that what was working for me is something that other people can do too. And I came to see that there are different models for this. And I've worked with clients now to build their own alchemy networks. Some are building a network of colleagues like the JVMM. Some are building a network of ideal clients, like my other network, Under the Radar Leaders Network, is for consultants, people who are past or present or potential future clients. Bit of a different model, bit of a different structure, bit of a different way of leading it and running it. And some are for what we call recommenders. A client of mine, one of the first people that I approached and said, I really think you'd benefit from starting your own alchemy network, as I call it. And he's a consultant. His clients are $500 million and $1 billion plus businesses. And a project with him is anywhere from a couple $100,000 for something they do over 90 days to low seven figures over something that stretches on longer. So his decision maker is very hard to reach. Now, I realized that he could build a community of people who are one or two levels below the CEO of these companies, who generally will need to be involved, not just because of the price of his consulting, but also because of the impact it has across multiple divisions. So you need somebody, the person at the top, to be able to say, hey, all of you need to dedicate time for this because it has to change. So we mapped out a model for his network and the strategy. And he started reaching out to, well, we decided that it was going to be for not the CEOs, not the managing director of these $500 million, $1 billion plus divisions or businesses, because to form a network that would really keep their attention, you really need to come up with something unique, because it has to be something that they could say, look, for me to be involved in this, it's going to affect enough of my job that it makes a lot of sense. And so we realized that what makes more sense over there was to create a network for recommenders. Recommenders are people who have a relationship with the real decision maker, and they could recommend, and they can also, perhaps in this case, they have a budget up to a certain amount. And he started reaching out cold to them using some messaging that we crafted. And he's got some fantastic results. He got 5 senior executives, these senior R&D executives, to book themselves on his calendar within 2-3 days in response to cold LinkedIn outreach that we did.
Yeah.
So that was a great story for him, but it also helped me start to realize what was possible. And then 4 out of 5 he took into his Alchemy network, which he leads, and it's a way of really just building relationships with these people. It becomes what I call an under the radar leader in his industry. To become an under the radar leader in your industry, you don't need to be very well famous. You just need to be well known to 15, 20, 30, 50 of the right people spread across in the right places. And then once you have that, you've got a back door to your buyer's office. All he's got to do is be valuable enough to these people in a very leveraged way through his Alchemy network, in a very leveraged way, again, by curation and conversation and with a little bit of expertise. It's not a coaching program, it's not consulting, but he is presenting himself as an authority.
You got to know the language, and you got to know the pain points of the people you're trying to serve. You got to analyze it in a way that enables you to define who's really your target persona, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what's so cool about the example you just gave, and I absolutely love it, because it's like the regular example. Well, okay, I know my persona is, in his case, the people who really is going to write him a $500,000 check is the CEO of the company, but you can't get to that guy. So like, okay, who can I get to influence the decision-making process? And, somebody closed the door, you find the window. And this is finding just a bunch of windows and kind of like stacking them together. So just it opens more opportunities for you.
Everybody wants to be part of a network. And this ties back with what I said before. Everybody is part of multiple networks and communities for the most part. The problem is that we tell ourselves, we say, well, okay, well, if Isar is already a member of this one and that, or whatever, why would he want to join my network? Why would anybody want to join my network? We tell ourselves, we ask ourselves, but we say it kind of like as if it's an answer. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that when before I even thought of starting JVMM, I joined these other ones. And what I noticed was how each community was different. Each community was different based on who the leader was. And everybody was, each was really appealing to a different type of person. And some of those people were, again, absolutely in multiple communities.
Yes.
So that's the answer that I came to realize when some people were asking me, but like, who would want to be in my network? The answer is that there are people waiting for you to start a network. They just don't know it, neither do you. Because you will create something with your curation and your approach to leading and conversation within your network. You'll do it in a way that nobody else is going to do. And it's really important to recognize that again, this isn't for everybody. I don't think this is it's not a get rich quick thing. This is a long-term strategy that has immediate benefit. Anytime you're doing something that helps you connect, with the right people, then you get immediate benefit.